Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you free yourself from the crap that's holding you back so you can claim the life you're meant to live. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we are talking about tapping into your brilliance. Let's dive in. Hi, friends, it's Jen. This episode is a continuation, another part of our Untethered Practices series. Now, it was so fun because someone asked on social media, said, hey, are you going to talk to an EFT or a tapping expert? And I was like, yes, today. Actually, I'm interviewing an international EFT tapping expert. And not only that, she is a tapping expert specifically for heart-centered high achievers. Heart-centered high achievers, raise your hands. That's probably like lots of my listeners. So the Sherry Lukey is absolutely amazing. You are going to love her. I knew from the first second that she popped into the Zoom room to record this episode that I was instantly like, you are such a match for this podcast. And I can't wait for you to hear everything that she has to say. So what Sherry does is she uses this modality called tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. And it's called tapping because you literally are tapping on your body while saying things to yourself, and it helps your nervous system to calm down. She's going to describe it so much more beautifully, but what she does is really help courageous and ambitious people get out of their own way, untether, so that they can take their brilliance and allow it to shine through. So Sherry's expertise has been featured in places like Forbes. She's internationally accredited, certified. She's got all the things. And you're just going to love all of the amazing things that she has to share with you about this modality, how it can be helpful, why it matters. She tells really honestly about her own journey with it and why this is the thing for her. And I think that reflection can help you understand if it's something you want to try. So give this episode a listen. Can't wait for you to hear it. Everybody welcome the amazing Sherry Lukey. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Jen. So excited to be here.
I have to tell the listeners what you did when we first got onto the call. You offered me a virtual hug, and that was the best.
Yeah, I know, right? We all need so many more hugs. And although I'm like thrilled about the virtual because you and I can have this conversation and we're not even in the same country, but I just think we need a lot more hugs.
Oh, it's so lovely. It's lovely when somebody takes the time to do that. So I just want to thank you and publicly thank you for that. I just think that it just says the kind of person who you are. And I know that the audience can't see you, but I can just see what a kind and heart-centered person you are. And you have gifts that you're offering the world. And we're going to dive in today and learn about those gifts. And we're doing this Untethered Practices series. And so the timing is just so perfect for you to come on the podcast and share what you do, because this is one of those things, EFT tapping, you're going to get into what it really is. And I only know so much. I've done it very little and have experienced benefit from just the amount that I have learned and done. So I'm genuinely so happy to have you on and get really curious with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm hoping this information is game-changing for your audience because it certainly was for me and thousands of clients I've worked with. So
I love it. Okay, so first, tell us what you do. And then I would love to hear how you came to this, but I just so that the audience is like, oh, okay, now I have a grounding for what it is that she does and what she's going to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's perfect, Jen. Yeah, so I'm an EFT tapping practitioner, and EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And I'm also matrix reimprinting, and matrix reimprinting is an advanced form of EFT. So I'll get into that a little bit as well. But it's just called tapping simply because that's what you do. You actually tap on high concentrations of nerve endings that are on your upper body. We have these high concentrations all over our body that are also called acupressure points. And literally what you do is you stimulate them by tapping on it. So that's why most people don't call it EFT. They just call it tapping because you're literally just tapping on these upper body points, and they're also on your hands. Mm-hmm. And what's brilliant about it is that when you do that, it sends a soothing signal through your nervous system to your amygdala. where the stress response gets kicked in, right? Where the fight, flight, and freeze goes off. And it literally interrupts that, Jen. And so you can go from 100 to 0 in literally seconds. It's just phenomenal. And what's so exciting for me, because I started this a long time ago, is that now there's probably over 200 studies across the world scientifically proving it. There's 100 gold standard studies. And there's a really cool doctor of psychology in Australia, Dr. Peter Stapleton, and she's actually using an fMRI machine where they actually do brain scans and they can actually see the changes in the brain. It is just mind-blowing.
Wow. There's so much research being done on things like this, but this one in particular, I know that there are a lot of psychologists, so many people in science who really endorse this particular modality. So
yeah, because it's literally at your fingertips, and it's just easy. You can use it anywhere. You know, I teach people to use it on themselves. Some practitioners will still tap on others. I still really recommend you learning it and doing it on yourself. But that the combination of what's really cognitive behavioral therapy, that cognitive part where you're actually doing the talking, and also the body part. And that's combining those two. So the cognitive behavioral therapy and also the somatic, which is soothing the nervous system, it really creates miraculous results. And tapping is just super easy to learn. And people get results almost always.
So cool. Okay, we're going to dive a bit more into that. I would really love to know, how did you come to be so passionate about this specific thing?
Out of desperation. I actually, so a little over 10 years ago, a little longer than that, I have adult twin girls who are absolutely amazing humans that I'm so proud of. But one of them is a horseback rider. And she had a really serious horseback riding accident when she was 15. She had a horse rear up and land on her and then roll off. And I witnessed the accident. She was in a wheelchair for a couple months and then crutches for a month after that. And, whenever anyone's gone through tough stuff, you just suck it up and you just push through. And that's what I did. And then I was really familiar with doing that because as a high achiever, and yourself, I know as well, and probably a lot of your listeners, is that when you hit tough times, you just buckle down and get through it. Well, I got through it and she's great and she's riding again. But then about a couple of years afterwards, over that couple of years, my health just declined really badly. And I hit a real rock bottom where my body just said, that's enough, because I had been pushing and pushing and pushing really my whole life. That's what I discovered after. And I'd been trying to solve health and finances because I'd been a roller coaster my whole life, trying everything under the sun, all kinds of different modalities, whether it be mainstream or alternative, and everything was great. And I got value from it, but nothing stuck. I never actually showed up differently. And so to this point, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm screwed. Because now I'm like, I've tried everything, nothing's working. And so, but I ended up discovering, through a longer story, is discovering EFT. And EFT tapping is exceptional with trauma. And so I thought, well, this was a really traumatic event. Maybe this will be the thing. But I really didn't think it was going to work, Jen, because it is pretty strange. When you first learn it, you're like, really? What are we doing here?
Strange and simple.
Strange and simple. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And so for both those reasons, you really don't think it's going to work.
Right.
And so I didn't tell anyone. I was really quite a closet tapper. And what I noticed is that after the first month, I started to get quiet in my head. And I really didn't know how busy it was in there until it finally got quiet. And I would actually say with a lot of high achievers that we got pretty busy brains, but it's not like, it's not, you can compare it to somebody else until it changes. And when it started to get quiet, I was like, wow, this is weird. And then over the course of the next 2 months, that ended up in like 3 months, I started to feel energetic. I lost all the weight that I'd put on. I felt hopeful. My brain was clear. I was quiet. And I was like, holy shit, what has happened here? Because this is such a profound result from something so strange and simple. And so then I spent the next couple months putting all the pieces together physiologically and psychologically as to why it was working. And then it was like, I have to help people, solve this themselves, help others, because like I said, I'd spent 30 years trying to sort this stuff out.
Wow. That's so wild. Thank you so much for sharing and being honest about your own, I didn't think this was going to work. And then it did work.
Yeah, because I have a little bit of an A type, right? Because the A type in me was kind of like, yeah, I don't think so, kind of thing, right? And that's also why I didn't do anything else. It was only that thing, so I knew it was working.
Yeah, I call myself, I'm skeptical and willing.
That's beautiful.
Try
Yeah,
all the things.
that's perfect. Yep.
A little bit of healthy skepticism, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So for someone who is like, oh, hey, I am a high achiever. Oh, I'm maybe a little bit interested in what you're talking about. So can you describe what tapping is? And I know we're listening and we're not totally seeing exactly what it is, but can you maybe walk us through the process of how to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you literally, with two fingers, you will tap on acupressure points. The first one that we start on is on the side of the hand. So it's kind of like the karate chop place. And instead of using two fingers, you use four fingers there. And most of the time, we'll start off with a setup statement. And the setup statement is basically a neutralizing word or phrase, and then the problem, and then a neutralizing word or phrase. And then we'll repeat that 3 times, and then we'll go to the top of the head. And it's a call and response. So I would say the statements, and then you would repeat after me. And then we'd go to the top of the head, right to the crown of the head. And again, you're tapping, not hammering. When I first learning, I thought if I hit my head hard enough, I could knock all the shit out of it. Doesn't work. No, you just get bruises and really uncomfortable. So top of the head, and then the next one is the eyebrow. So right on this, right above the nose, right where the eyebrow starts, and then other end of the eyebrow still on the eye socket, and then under the eye still on the eye socket, and then under the nose, crease of the chin. Collarbone is if you feel the 2 bony protrusions right below, if you went directly from your mouth down to your collarbone, and then you go at an angle about a half an inch or a couple centimeters down. There's a little bit of an indent, a little soft spot. That's collarbone. And then under the arm is basically straight down from the armpit onto the bra strap for women. And then there's a couple points that most practitioners don't use that I like to use because, and I'll explain in a second, is rib point. So if you picture your breast nipples and went down straight onto your last rib, that is called rib point or liver point. And the reason why it's so important is because the liver processes stress. And so it's a really important point if you're really feeling really stressed. But a lot don't use it because for women, they have to get under the girls. And I'm like, just get over yourself and get under there because it's an important part, is spot. And then the last one is inside of the wrist, which is like a perfume rub or where the watch band would go. And that is what's considered a complete round of tapping. Now, that said, what's cool about tapping is that what you can use is just a Band-Aid tapping, which is basically in any moment at any time to get on any acupressure point and start tapping. Because what it does, as I said earlier, is it sends that soothing signal through the body, through the nervous system to the amygdala, and it interrupts it. And it basically tells the subconscious that, because its job is to keep you alive and breathing. And I know we're on a podcast, but I'm going to show you anyway, and I'll describe it to the listeners.
Yeah.
But behind me, I have a giant green ball, the size that's an exercise ball. And then I have a little tiny green marble the size of your end of your thumb. That little tiny green marble represents your conscious mind. That giant green ball represents your subconscious mind. And it's so big, you can barely get your arms around it because it's a really good visual to understand how much more powerful your subconscious is and that its job is to keep you alive and breathing. And if it perceives a threat, whether that be real or perceived, it triggers the stress response. As soon as that happens, all the blood drains out of your creative problem-solving frontal lobe into your primal brain to get you ready to fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. And so the beauty of tapping is it interrupts that. And it basically says to your subconscious, there's no threat. And so now all that blood flow comes back. Now you can think creatively. Now you can see things that it's like, oh, that's a belief. That's not a fact. You can, start to access information that wasn't available to you before. I listened to your podcast about the snow day. And what I loved about it, well, it was a beautiful podcast. I recommend people listening to it. But when you use the description of seeing the cobwebs that the snow revealed, to me, that's exactly what tapping's like. All of a sudden, things become revealed to you that they've always been there, but you just had no idea. And that's as soon as that stress response is off, that's what becomes available, information that you just didn't know you had.
Oh, okay. So when we see, First of all, thank you for listening to that episode. That was such a fun day in Portland. There was so much snow. We got 12 and a half inches record snow, ever snowfall in Portland. And I was having so much fun that day. And for the next like 7 days, I was like, this needs to leave. I'm done. I got the lesson from the webs, and now it's time for all the snow to go away.
It was fun that day though.
Yes. So when we see those cobwebs, it reveals it. Does it reveal and then it just like dissipates? It just goes away? Or is there something we do with that information that is revealed to us through the tapping? I guess that's kind of like what is happening there in that next step, that next phase?
Perfect question. Yes. So having it revealed. So now you can see the cobwebs. Now you can see the limiting beliefs that you weren't aware of before. And now you're actually able to change them. So you go through the first piece is acknowledging them. So they're recognizing that they're there and acknowledging them. I like to think of it like, if you ever have a 2-year-old at your leg or, a dog that's like wants to go out and they just keep bugging you and you keep going, not now, I'm busy, I'll later. And they just get louder and more obnoxious until you finally go, okay, what is it that you need? And then they go away. That's what these kinds of, that stress response and these beliefs, it's like they're there and they're kind of screaming at you. And when you actually recognize them, acknowledge them, then they start to dissipate. The activation around them dissipates. Mm-hmm. Then you're actually able to see, oh, this is actually not supporting me. This is the opposite of actually what I want. So then you can begin to change it. So then we would go from tapping on the acknowledging and recognizing piece to tapping on now the reprogramming and actually changing it to a supportive belief. And then the third phase would be to reinforce that. So it goes from recognizing, reprogramming, reinforcing. And that's my R3 system and framework to help people use it outside of working with me. And so that has different levels because I love to go super deep and get to the very root of things. That said, you want to be able to be turning the stress response off on a regular basis because we're so accustomed to being in that stress response, and the subconscious, it gets whatever it's familiar with, it sees as safe. Mm. And so as soon as we start to, get into changing things, so we recognize, oh, that's not a belief that's going to work for me. We start to reprogram it, then we need to reinforce it over and over again because initially the subconscious is going to have resistance to it because it's not familiar. And that's where it's like learning to drive a car. It's over and over and over and over and over again until subconscious goes, oh, okay, this is how we do things now.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm also curious. So it seems like you say working with a practitioner, particularly you, it's like, we're going to go deep. And then what you can do on your own is more like maintenance. Is that correct?
Yeah. It is possible to do on your own. What I really recommend though, for people that, if you know that you've had some traumatic events in your life, it's just way easier to work with a practitioner. They're able to, hold space for you. They're able to connect dots that you maybe aren't able to, but most importantly, they keep a safe space for you. And so I say to people, it doesn't have to be me, but whoever that you find, first of all, make sure that they do a free consult. To me, it's not okay. There has to be a connection between the two of you. So don't be afraid to shop around because not everybody is a fit for everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But having that consult doesn't have to be very long. You're going to know pretty quick whether or not they're a fit. So once you know that that's a fit, then you can go forward and actually start to dig into stuff. But where tapping is also really powerful. And I have a free YouTube channel. So it's a free resource. And there's all kinds of tapping out there. And again, same thing. Just if you're not resonating with the person or their voice or the pacing or whatever, find somebody else. But the beauty of that is it helps to do that reinforce piece. And also you can, if you don't have that super, know that you've had traumatic events, there's things that you can work on your own. And it is even possible to do on your own. It's just a lot harder.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I can relate that for myself as a breathwork facilitator. And those who have been listening to multiple episodes of this series where we're going into these different practices, something that you said that tapping allows you to do, I feel like is very similar to what I do with breathwork. And it helps people simply meet themselves, simply see the things that are happening, and it creates some amount of distance from it. You're no longer living in the soup, but you're looking at the soup and seeing what's in there. So you're not boiling in that hot water anymore. You're outside of it looking in and able to see what's there.
Yeah. And what additionally helps is which I'm certain you do as well, Jen, is creating this really safe space for people. And that helps to turn the stress response off as well. So that people, it just lets the barriers down. And that's the super cool part about actually, and we're social beings. So it's just a lot easier to have someone else help us. It is possible to do on our own. It's just a lot harder.
Yes, I completely agree. Same. Yeah, exactly what you said with breath work is that because you can even get a recording, and I've done multiple recorded sessions when you're there live and your mind knows that somebody is there with you holding space for you. There is this level of relaxation. There's this hold that particularly us high achievers, like we're holders. We're like, not, and so when there's somebody there, it's like, like there's just this relaxation that can happen. And so it allows, mentally for you to go deeper as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's because as soon as that relaxation response is on and the stress response is off, like I said, tapping's the bomb for me. It's the thing that actually did it. But what you want to know is you just have to be in relaxation, and it has to be head, heart, and gut for me, because before I was in my head, oh, I'm relaxed, but my body was screaming, no, you're not, because I was so disconnected from it. Mm-hmm. And when you connect that head, heart, and gut, and you actually do a full check-in, it's like, is everybody in relaxation? Cool. Then we can go forward and actually start to change things and dig into things. And even throughout people's days is doing that, just that small check-in. And I'm certain the same with you when you do with the breath work. It's just take a second and actually check in. Am I stressed or am I in relaxation? And I like to use the image of an hourglass because it's basically two parts to it. That represents the nervous system, really. The top half is relaxation or parasympathetic. Bottom half is sympathetic or stress response. And there's only a tiny narrow neck. So if you had to, there's no neutral place. You have to decide, am I in the top half or am I in the bottom half? And if I'm in the bottom half, then I need to find a way to relax. That could be tapping, that could be breath work, that could be meditating, it could be whatever is going to do it for you. The critical piece is getting into relaxation.
Yeah, thank you so much for being so willing to share how it relates to these other modalities. I think that can be really helpful for someone. Why for you specifically tapping? Because it sounds like you've sampled lots of things. And do you know, have you reflected on that? Like, why is this the thing that seems for you to be the thing that works really well?
Yeah, and great question. Yes, I have, because I was kind of like, why did this thing work and the other things didn't? And that was the other part for me, is because I actually started to think that there was something innately wrong with me, because I had tried a lot of things that had worked for other people. And I was like, what the F is wrong with me that they're not working? Because again, that high achiever A type, I was doing them. I was doing them to the nth degree and it wasn't working. And I think the distinction for me is that, and I've never been diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I might be on the ADHD scale. Where, and I think a lot of high achievers, especially entrepreneurs, are probably on that as well. And so what I found is that it was such a busy mind. And although the tappings, what started to happen is it started to get quiet, because I had tried meditation in the past, which I highly recommend and I can do now. But at the time, I just couldn't quiet my mind. I just could not get that relaxation response off. So in order and be able to start to access that information that was there, started to, as you said, see myself and start to see things differently. That was just not available because I just couldn't get over the hump of getting to relaxation.
Yeah. The science that you shared really backs up what you're saying there too, because it is such a powerful way to calm your nervous system. It is such a powerful way to quiet the mind. And so it's such a great thing for the people who really struggle with that. And there's lots of people who try to meditate. It's not working, try other things. It's not working. So, try the thing that is working for you. And so grateful that you're here and sharing this knowledge with us.
Yeah. And I think just because I'm, I like to do things fast. I like to talk fast. I like all of, think fast, all the things. And so I think what tapping does is it gives me something physically to do so that I can actually keep that busyness actually doing, something externally. So that's partly why it worked for me. But one of the things I want to share, though, is it's just a phenomenal study because Dr. Paige Stapleton her thing is food cravings. And so she actually took two groups of people and put them through this fMRI machine. And they showed them pictures of all all the hamburgers and the wine and the chocolate and all the things. And then looked at their brains, and they were actually lighting up like Christmas trees, all of them. And so then she took this group, divided them into two. One group didn't get the tapping, very sad for them. The other group got the tapping, and they had 5 weeks of, I think, about 2 hours a week, of tapping, and then put them through the fMRI machine again. And the technician that was actually had happened to be the one that put them through initially, was there doing it again. And so same thing, showed them all the pictures. The group that didn't get the tapping, brain lit up like Christmas tree again. The group that did get the tapping, their brain was nothing, Jen, to the point where the technician looked up at Dr. Stapleton and was like, "What did you do to these people?" Like, it looked like there was nobody in the machine.
Are you sure the machine's working?
Yeah, exactly. And so when you're able to have tangible results like that, I find it's like super motivating and easier to buy into, because like we said at the beginning, it's a little strange and it seems like way too simple to get those kind of results.
Mm-hmm. That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that study that really solidifies what it can do. At the same time, I think sometimes we're attached to some of these thoughts and some of these feelings and some of these behaviors, and it feels like part of who we are. And so dedicating ourselves to really moving forward and really trying something that's going to work, we can have some hesitation. We can, it's like I was talking to a coaching client the other day, and she offers these amazing practices that really support people. And, she's like, I gave it away for free and they still don't sign up. And it's like, there's such a hump for us to all get over to say yes to something for ourselves that we know is going to help us. So I'm curious, for yourself, for clients that you've had in general, do you have any thoughts on that for somebody that might be it's like we're comfortable in our discomfort in some
absolutely.
ways?
100%. And that's exactly that. That's a giant green ball. Like it wants to keep everything the same, because as far as it's concerned, same equals safe, even if same sucks. And that's how it was for me. Same sucked. And so that resistance is completely normal. And it's on both ends. It's kind of like a thermostat, subconscious kind of thermostat, the subconscious is like the thermostat. It has an upper level and a lower level, and it wants to keep you right in that middle place. So if you start to, let's use money for an example. Let's say if the money starts to drop and you're not making as much as you were, or you're spending more than you should be, and you drop below what would be considered that below threshold, what's sort of safe and normal, then you're going to kick into gear. You're going to get the second job. You're going to go out and get the sales. You'll stop spending. You'll do all the things to get yourself back into that comfort zone of whatever level your income was. The same thing happens on the top end, is that when we hit that top end of a new level, let's say, you've broken, through 6 figures, but now you're at to 6.5 figures. And it's like your subconscious is going to go, "Oh, I don't know that I can keep you alive and breathing here, because this isn't safe. This isn't familiar." So now you're going to go into self-sabotage mode. Mm-hmm. Now you start spending. Now you stop making the sales. Now whatever it is, you're going to stop and get back down into that comfort zone. So first of all, understanding that helps people to know that it's like, oh, this is normal, that I want to stay in the comfort zone. But it also, what I say to people though, is that, yeah, it might feel comfortable, but it kind of shrinks your heart, because we're meant to grow. We're really like the tree that wants to become its fullest version of itself, the biggest, most beautiful tree. And if we don't allow ourselves to recognize, yes, this is uncomfortable, and also how I'm going to feel fully alive, is by actually pushing that upper limit and allowing myself to grow. If that can help motivate people to kind of go, oh, okay, I'm not going to feel comfortable, but I'm not going to die. And I know it sounds funny, but really that's the subconscious, how it's perceiving it. It's very black and white. Either this is safe or it's not safe. Either you're going to stay alive or you're going to die. And literally telling yourself, this new thing that you want to do, yeah, it might be scary, it might be uncomfortable, but am I going to die from it? Because I'm not going to, it might be embarrassing, it might fail, but none of those things are an actual threat to my survival. So what I say to clients all the time is literally tap and tell your subconscious that it's like, I totally get you. Yeah, I know you're just trying to protect me, and I'm not going to die. This is not a threat.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So what you said about the heart, does that go back to that mind, heart, and gut thing that you had shared. If the heart is closing, then those three things are not open and functioning in the way that they.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like a stress response is going to be contracting. Relaxation response is expanding.
Mm.
And, and then one of the questions that I get right away for people is like, yeah, but how do we know the line between pushing too hard or going the wrong direction and just getting out of our comfort zone and trying something new? And this is the distinction that I help people to use. First of all, get out of the stress response, tap, use breath work, meditate, whatever you need to do to get fully out of stress response, because there is no way that you can think clearly or think creatively or possibilities when you're in stress response. So that's the first thing. You have to get out of it. Once you're in relaxation, now you get curious about the questions. So how does this feel? Head, heart, and gut. Is it feeling like the right thing? And then sometimes you're still not sure. And that's when you're going to have to just go do it. And there's going to be times where it's like, hell yeah, this was the right thing to do. And there's going to be times like, oh shit, this is not the right direction. I need to go a different way. And that's where I feel like I tell people, it's like, especially because I work with heart-centered high achievers, is that heart-centered people have so much compassion and patience for everyone else, but almost nothing for themselves. And if you can begin to cultivate that, then it gives you permission to be more exploratory, to be able to kind of go, okay, so I'm going to try this out. Might be the right thing, might not, because we don't have crystal balls. We are not supposed to know what the future holds. So it's impossible for us to know 100% that this is the direction to go. I'm just uncomfortable because my stress, because my subconscious is uncomfortable. Oh yeah, no, this is 100%. No, we can't know. And we're not going to know until we get there.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something in there that is so profound, is that like the learning is through doing. There's so much to be learned through the doing. However, if we are doing while in a heightened stress response state while we're contracted, then that doing, first, it's going to be miserable, first of all, and it's not going to be effective because you're essentially trying to do it while you're curled up in a ball. Like your arms aren't free. Everything's not free to move freely because you're not in that expansion. You're contracted and trying to do it. So what I hear you saying is the tapping helps you to relax that nervous system. And then you can reflect. You can ask yourself the important questions. And then if you still don't know, get out there and just do it and move forward, which is, for example, like what I did with this podcast was very much that process, and just moving forward with the relaxation, with the reflection, and then you can do it and it feels safe. You have safety. We have to have safety. We cannot be effective without safety.
Yes, exactly.
It's a human need.
Totally. And two things in that. Yeah, exactly. The fetal position is great. Another visual I like to say to people, it's like the difference between putting your canoe in the river and paddling upstream. And that's trying to go against, do things when you're in stress response versus going, with the flow. And then I would also say that it's like, there's another element to this, and that is those subconscious limiting beliefs that, that giant green ball that I'm describing, is that most of our beliefs about ourselves and the world are set up before the age of 7 or 8. And it's just a rinse and repeat for the rest of our life. And so what we know is that beliefs that are in alignment with our wants, those are the areas of our life that are working. Beliefs that are not in alignment with our wants, those are the areas that aren't working. And so that's where I would encourage people that it's like, so, do the recommend what we just said. And if you're still finding that you go out and do it and you just cannot get off the stress response, or you can't even get going, that you can't even take the step, that's when I really recommend digging in deeper, because when we have these limiting beliefs about ourselves, that subconscious, that giant green ball is going to stop us in our tracks every time. And so that's where you want to get curious and be kind of like, okay, is there a modality that seems to appeal to me? Is there someone that I feel in alignment with? Because when you're in the forest, it's hard to see the trees, and, one of the things that I feel like I'm exceptional at is connecting dots for people. I had a client actually say, it's like looking at the stars and having someone point out the constellations. and having, and like you said earlier, when you're really in it, you can't see it, right? And so get that support, because there may very well be something that really your subconscious is going, nope, this is, you're going to die if you do this. That's what's going to happen. And that's what needs to get changed so that you can at least take that first step and then start to make progress.
Yeah. Oh, what a great analogy. What somebody offered you there. Like, you cannot see the Big Dipper if you're up there in the middle of it. There's no way that you could possibly see it. So having somebody else to support you can be helpful. Doing the tapping yourself and creating some separation for yourself can be helpful. I love what you said about your beliefs not aligning with your wants. What she's describing there, people, is a tether. You are a negative tether, like a tether that's not serving you. Exactly. Negative's maybe not even the right word, but a tether that's not serving you anymore, because it's a belief that you hold. It might be somebody else's belief that was imposed on you somehow. It could have been a belief that you had that did serve you a long time ago, but it's no longer serving one of your wants. And so it's noticing there's a cobweb on me that I can just wipe clean.
Yeah, exactly.
Tapping can help you see it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And that tether is it's a perfect way to describe it as well, because it really is holding you back. It really is tethering you, to something that isn't allowing you to grow and expand. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, that's
what your heart wants, like you said.
Exactly. And, and seeing it from that understanding that it's like, it's not your fault. Like these beliefs that got set up in there that aren't in alignment with what you want, they're not your fault. You didn't consciously go, yeah, I'm going to pick that one where I don't make any money. Not like that.
Nobody chooses that one intentionally.
No, or any of them, or I'm going to have shitty health, or I'm not going to have bad relationships, or what. You don't consciously choose them. It's like a guilt and innocent. Yes, you're guilty of doing the things, but you're innocent because you didn't consciously choose them. The cool part is that the brain is neuroplastic and it's changeable, but the stress response has to be off to make those changes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have a little bit off the wall question. I'm curious if can tapping help you tap into your creativity?
Yes, absolutely. Because again, as soon as that stress response is off, that subconscious, which I feel like is directly connected to, that higher source, whatever you want to call it, is the infinite knowledge, that becomes available. But the subconscious is it's just doing its job. If it's a perceived threat, if it's in stress response, there's just no access for that. It's like, it's like, no, as far as it's concerned, there's a tiger on your ass and you need to get away from it, or hide or do something. So creativity is not on the list when that's the priority. So that's the first step, is getting that off. And then that becomes available, because creativity and growth and expansion and abundance, those are our natural, that's our nature. That's our natural state. But our system has been designed thousands of years ago to just survive. And it hasn't had an upgrade. It's just doing its job, but it's really out of date. And so we really have to take the wheel and kind of go, okay, no, there is no threats. I actually am safe, and I can do these things and allow myself to explore all of the abundance and creativity that's available.
Thank you so much. Something, as you were describing that, it really made me think about the history of humanity. And there was such a long time where we could not tap into our creativity. And then we discovered community, and we suddenly had safety, and suddenly creativity was allowed to thrive. And now we're so connected, and we're so capable of being creative, and the world really needs it in lots of ways right now because of things we've constructed that are not currently serving us. We really need to be tapping into our creativity, but we're missing a lot of psychological safety right now. And so things like what you're offering are bringing that into the collective consciousness. Like we can tap into this creativity with this modality.
Yeah, exactly. Though 100%. Yeah. And those creative solutions, they're only available there. And understanding that it's like something that can be really positive can also have a negative. It's how it impacts you personally. It's so subjective. That's why, 7 different people in an accident can have 7 different views of it. Some would be like, oh, it's all good because everybody came out of it. The other person's like, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. And understanding how whatever it is that you're doing and experiencing, how it's impacting you, and not comparing it to somebody else. if it's not working for you, that's what you have to address. And I would also say that with high, heart-centered high achievers, they're very often very highly sensitive as well. And what I want people to understand about that is that, because I'm one, extreme one, is that how I experience the world is very different. And anyone else like that, and I would think that you are as well, Jen, one of those people that's very, you picking up on a lot of information, is that you experience the world very differently than other people. And so it's so important to acknowledge your experience and how you're feeling and not compare it to anyone else, because if it's not working for you, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm. That brings me back to something I did not ask you. Is your daughter okay?
Yes. Oh yeah.
She's
no,
okay.
I did mention that. Yeah. No,
you did.
Actually...
Okay. I was like, did we discuss that all of a sudden? I was like, she's okay. But what you said there, that's why I went back to that, because, some people might see that scenario and be like, amazing, she's fine. But you held some trauma in your body. You held trauma, and there was trauma there that was held from that scenario. And that's your unique way that you coped with it. And so a unique solution for you, this was the thing for you that really supported you.
Yeah. And I call it my gift in sandpaper, because it was like the gift in it led me to doing this work, which, outside of being a mom, this is my life's work. I feel I pinch myself every day because I have emails and texts of people's lives that are changed. And my heart just is so full. And that said, though, is what was interesting about that, her accident was it was the tipping point, because what I understood after, put all the pieces together, was really I had multiple traumatic events. And I really feel like people, again, don't understand trauma, like from the perspective of individual subjectivity, because of course, rape and war and all those things, they're definitely traumatic. But really, trauma has 3 ingredients. It's shock, feeling of isolation or being alone, and feeling helpless or powerless. And so when you have those 3 ingredients, you have, it might not be a big T trauma, but it might be a small T trauma. And as soon as the subconscious experiences a traumatic event, it makes up a belief about the world so that it can try to prevent it from happening again. And it's almost always limiting. And so that's why it's so important to address the stuff how you feel. So if something that you have experienced was really upsetting or really negative, I really encourage your audience to get curious about it and kind of go, okay, if that happened, I wonder what beliefs I made up about the world and myself that might be holding myself back now.
Yeah, because those beliefs, going back to that visual that you had given about the subconscious and the top, bottom, it wants you to stay in the middle, and something traumatic happened when it hit a high. So it's pulling you back down. It doesn't want you to go up there again. Am I describing that accurately?
Yeah. Tethers you back into the comfort zone.
Those tethers.
Right? Yeah, the tethers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's, and so understanding that it's like such a personal experience. And for high achievers, we will take full responsibility for everything, and we will beat the shit out of ourselves. And that's where I feel like if you can have that compassion and have that curiosity, then stuff becomes available that it's like, oh, and now I can see it differently and start to do things differently.
Thank you. So I have a personal question. You're allowed to not answer if you don't want to.
No, I said I'm open book. You go for it, girl.
What is when you think about you're a high achiever, and I see that you have taken this gift and you're putting it out into the world. You're going on a podcast, you're talking about it, you're getting clients. That is a new level. That is a next level. Somebody else might, be like, I want to be to that point, but I can't. So you have obviously broken through, cut through some tethers to get to the point that you're at. I am curious, what has been the number one hardest thing for you to get to this point with your business, with sharing your gifts?
Yeah. And great question. And actually no one's ever asked me that before. So that's a really good question, Jen. Charging my worth, because worthiness I really feel like I came in, this is the world according to Sherry with air quotes, is that I feel like we make agreements, in the light or whatever you call it, about things that we want to learn in this lifetime. And I really feel like worth is mine. It's one of the things that I feel like it's a Shrek onion, and there might be a whole bag of onions with it, that you're just peeling the layers off with it. And although I feel like in such a better place with it, what I notice is that it still shows up, but it doesn't stop me anymore. But that was the thing because I felt, and it was complicated for me because it felt like if I charged a lot, that I was leaving people behind, that I was excluding somehow. And my mindset has changed very much around different about that now, because what my goal is to have influence, be able to help people at very high levels so that they can have an impact on, millions of people. And so I can't help millions of people. I don't have the bandwidth for that, but I can help somebody that's in charge of thousands of people. And if I can change how they see the world and how they operate and come from that beautiful heart-centered place where we lift everyone up as well as themselves, then now I'm actually making the impact that I wanted to make the world a better place. So if I continue to only charge at a very low point, then I'm only influencing, and it's great. I mean, when I started, I was like, I'm so grateful for those initial clients and making the difference in their world. It was meaningful. They still have a beautiful place in my heart. And now the next level for me is to be able to, what I feel is really fulfilling my purpose and potential. And that's that. But for sure, that worth piece comes up. And not even from the monetary piece, but also from the, well, who are you to think that you have something that's of worth to someone at that level?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're offering what you've offered on this podcast today for free. You also have paid offers that are there and available for people who want to go to that next level. And so from my perspective, and anyone who looks at you, and I know that you know this because you have gone to that level, but just for the listener who might be in this place, knowing that there are always ways that you can give your gifts for free and also be able to up level them I think it's so gorgeous the way that you're looking at it. Like, my impact can be greater this way. This is the way I'm going to do it. And yes, this podcast is supporting your visibility as well. Like, you're always getting, and I think it's something that I teach my clients. It's just it's reciprocal. We always have to allow ourselves to get, as we're giving, and we are meant to be giving these gifts away, and we're meant to be receiving something in exchange. That's what our heart wants. That's what our heart wants to do. So thank you for sharing that about worthiness. It's common, right? That's like one of the big ones.
It totally is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're 100% right. And it's like, and I'm so grateful to you for having me on the podcast, because it's like how I help prevent other people from, getting stuck or getting stopped is by having this information that it took me a long time to understand and put together. And, and then I also, do the scholarship thing as well. And there's all kinds of ways. And I have the free YouTube channel and all those things, and and it just feels like I'll come off this podcast and I'll just be so excited, because a contribution is one of my top values. And so I just really thank you for allowing me to be a contribution to you and your audience, because it's made my day.
Thank you so much. This is just a big love fest for sure. Okay. I have one more contribution to ask of you.
Yeah. 100%.
So my gift that I have been brought to the world to offer is helping people to shine what I call their magical unicorn lights, really understanding the magic of their gifts and being able to untether so that they can share them in the way that you so beautifully are sharing your knowledge. So this is a question I ask every single guest. Where do you see the magic in the world?
Yeah. And it's such a beautiful question. So I was somewhat prepared because I have listened to your podcast. So, and where I see the magic is like when I described that, when someone sees the constellation where the dots get connected, and it's kind of like, and I get shivers this thing, and it's like the clouds are parting and the angels are singing, and there's just this light up in a person where it's sort of like they are now, like you say, they're cut from that tether that's held them back. It's like, and they can see it, they can feel it, they know the possibility now. They're able to reframe it and, like I said, reinforce that new thing, and they are able to go into the world and have themselves show up completely differently, to the point where other people are going, what did you do? What did you do to change like this? And I know that was my experience when I found it. And that's, because I have the privilege of working with my girls and my husband and my other family members. And they only did that after they saw that light up in me. And that's what I love to see in others. And it really is. It's so magical. And I know you know it. I know you've experienced it with your clients. Same thing. It's just like, it's so amazing.
Well, you are definitely offering magic with your ability to connect the dots and to help other people shine their light. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you, connect with you, work with you?
The best place is on my website. So that's sherrylukey.com. So it's SherryLukey.com. And connect with me through there. There's also the free YouTube channel as well, but that's the fastest way to get me.
That's your hub.
That's my hub. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Sherry.
Thank you for having me.
So interesting. EFT, isn't it? Tapping. You want to go try it now? Head over to Sherry's YouTube and there's free videos, like she said, resources so that you can go and try tapping. I would love to hear if you try tapping and what your experience is. I was telling her before we began the episode that I have done tapping and I have noticed a difference. However, I think that I would like to work with somebody like her who really understands it, because I think when I've learned it in the past, it's kind of like, oh, here, try this tapping thing. And it wasn't necessarily someone who is deeply understanding of exactly what it is. So super excited to be connected with her. And I would love to hear if you try this modality. Maybe like Sherry, it will be the one for you that's really supportive. Maybe something else is really supportive to you. And I love that she's so open to sharing, try it with me, try it with someone else. Go out there and find your person, find your way. What is the thing that can help you personally to untether? Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you so much from the bottom of my heart. Sherry as well. Our just big hearts are so open right now after this conversation. And if you did enjoy this podcast episode, share it with a friend. Try tapping. That would be the biggest thing you could do, is just go out there and give this a try and let me know what you thought. You can always reach out to me on Instagram at untetheredjen. My email is in the show notes. All the links in the show notes. Would love to hear from you. You just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time.